Minecraft, a game full of experimentation. From redstone to massive simulations, it's clear there's plenty to test out. But what would happen if this time, the world, the house, and you are unknowingly the experiment? Recently, I came across a video I wasn't supposed to see, with the title Weird Minecraft Bugs, Bug Report 1. The thumbnail looked fairly innocent, presenting itself as a random Minecraft bug by a channel named The Decayed, with 9 other videos that didn't quite feel right to me either. Although wondering what type of bug I was about to see, I clicked, finding myself watching 2 players walking through a forest. As they start to type, we learn quickly we're watching someone called Sandy.
Man, that was fun.
Joined by a friend named Cargo.
Yeah, man.
They talk about how they had fun, but didn't find enough resources and potentially needing to go back.
We didn't really get too much stuff though.
And that if they wanted to upgrade their tools,
we don't have the best tools right now, so we should go mine.
And so after stopping by the storage room to drop off their resources, they went ahead with their plan to strip mine. But this is where I ask you to really pay attention to the chat, because how they discuss their plans to mine.
Alright, let's just get to Y11 and then we can strip mine.
And even how far to go down all seems fairly normal, with the video cutting ahead to the friendly duo coming across lava and choosing to turn back.
We'll come back later, don't worry.
And so they run back up the stairs, onto their pathway and right back into the house until the video restarts from the very beginning. Huh, weird. But something's off, and as I kept watching, I freaked out once I realized that Sandy too had noticed the weird loop.
What? Why am I back here?
And yet Cargo,
lol, yeah, that was pretty funny,
continued repeating his sentences.
Dude, what? Cargo.
We didn't really get too much stuff though.
Are you okay?
We'd have to keep watching to find out, as Sandy keeps typing.
I'm having such a weird deja vu right now.
Even attempting to see if it's a technical difficulty by asking,
Cargo, can you hear me?
And yet what continues to be sent are messages from the past.
We don't have the best tools right now, so we should go mine.
This goes on with Cargo up until the very last detail,
Dude?
where they find themselves running up the storage room stairs, out of the double doors and towards the mine. But whilst this video plays out, something new and odd is in this video clip. If you haven't noticed it already, I'll play it again for you. Do you see it? There in a distance between the 2 trees is a dark figure. It clearly wasn't there when Sandy and Cargo walked past earlier, and with the video quality being so poor, it's hard to really make out what it is. But we'll get back to this later, as the video cuts again back to Sandy and Cargo running down the mine.
Alright, let's just get to Y11 and then we can strip mine.
Okay.
As they make their way down the mine yet again, it's clear by the way Sandy types, he's growing confused and really starting to freak out.
This isn't funny, Cargo. You can stop now.
But he doesn't, and in a moment of clarity that can be seen, the video cuts again. This wasn't a bug report, and just when I thought this video was about to end, it continues to play through the eyes of the dark figure.
Cargo, can you
We
hear me?
don't have the best tools right now, so we should go mine.
What was this thing? Did it have something to do with the
Let
loot?
me store the wood.
Before I could even think further, the video ended on Sandy's house. This was definitely some sort of loop. I didn't know why yet, but I knew I had to get to the bottom of this, and the only way I knew how was to keep watching the videos. The video started like the first, the same loop, the same conversation, the same forest. Sandy realizing all of it, freaking out and running the opposite direction.
No.
Meanwhile, Cargo continues to repeat the same messages like some sort of NPC.
lol, yeah, that was pretty funny.
But as Sandy pushes through the trees, the same dark figure from the previous video can be spotted. Yet Sandy doesn't notice, instead reaching the end of the forest and facing the end of the world. The end of the world? What could this mean? Was Sandy in some sort of enclosure? Maybe some sort of simulation? Between all of my questions, something unexpected happened. As Sandy approaches closer and closer to the edge of the world, he turns back towards the house, almost like he's changed his mind, asking the same questions as me. What was this world, and was any of it even real? All whilst Cargo continues repeating his messages.
Alright, let's just get to Y11 and then we can strip mine.
But when Sandy arrives home, Cargo is nowhere to be seen, leaving Sandy to his own device and turning down the mine, where even there, Cargo is nowhere to be seen. And by putting the previous videos side by side, at this point, Sandy is running downstairs that shouldn't even exist.
How am I here? What is this?
Until you can see even through the footage that Sandy is confused. Who made this strip mine? This shouldn't be here. And so he runs and runs until he comes across a much smaller strip mine. The wind starts picking up. It gets darker and darker, and suddenly it seems Sandy's been caught in the loop again, and this time there's no cargo in sight, not even his messages, which makes me think that every time there's a loop, it breaks the world bit by bit. And at this point, it was becoming noticeable, with the world's in-game music also feeling its effects. But Sandy heads back home, where the same dark figure that's been seen twice before can be spotted yet again, this time with a name tag that I'm unable to read. But none of this really matters right now, because as Sandy reaches the doors to his house, it's clear his friend's bed is missing.
Cargo.
And with this realization, he checks everywhere. The storage room,
Where is my friend?
the path outside, and even eventually finding himself at the very bottom of the strip mine.
What did they do to you?
Now, hold on, what did he mean by they? Did Sandy know something that I didn't? This would have to go unanswered, because as I kept watching, dark splotches on the walls, floors, and ceiling started to appear, slowly growing larger and larger as Sandy walked further and further, with the music only getting weirder and weirder when suddenly,
I haven't talked to him in days.
blue text started appearing on screen.
He hasn't played Minecraft with me for so long.
Cargo.
Okay, that's odd. Who's talking here?
I hope everything is alright.
Is that meant to be Cargo?
Where is he?
Is Cargo also looking for Sandy?
Where is he?
The video ends on Sandy's house yet again, although this time the doors are left wide open, and by putting the previous image side by side, it was as if these images were clues to something I had no idea about. And so when I got to the next video titled Limbo, I could tell instantly that something was about to be different, because compared to the previous descriptions,
More footage of me finding weird things in my world. I don't think that's my friend. Sandy Carts 8.
Sandy was no longer signing off.
Signals. Something is not right. He reached sentience. This is not supposed to happen. This is not supposed to happen. What will I tell him?
Cargo.
The video starts like the two before, with the lonely Sandy wandering back through the trees to his house. There's no sign or message from Cargo at all, but whilst heading up the pathway towards his house, Sandy continues to type.
I really have to explore this world. I want to find out what's happening.
And so he does, stepping through his door, pausing and noticing a painting on the wall that wasn't there last time. Strange. He pushes on, heading downstairs, only to quickly come back up and see that the painting has been swapped from an angel to what looked like flowers. What is going on here? Sandy, still curious, heads on out.
Maybe this way.
It's uncertain what Sandy's trying to achieve here, but as he climbs up the hill, he finds himself walking through a plains forest, and very quickly reaching the end of the world once again. But this time, he approaches carefully, passing through the flowers until the unexpected happens. He catches onto a block and he follows, taking one step after the other, making time to look back. At first, it leads nowhere, and then what looks like a door renders in the distance. And in the midst of his confusion, he starts typing frantically.
What the heck? What? How is this here?
This felt like the Truman Show, where Jim Carrey finally realizes the world he's been living in isn't what he thought it was. But this time, it's Sandy.
What is this?
I had no idea where this was going, but Sandy gets closer, almost as if he's building his confidence to open the door.
Well, guess. I don't have an option.
And after a moment of pure hesitation for what lies next, he walks. Now, before we find out where this door truly leads Sandy, if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe, as I'm trying to reach my goal of 800,855 subscribers by the end of the year. You know, for no reason in particular. Now let's find out where Sandy's gone. The clip cuts in again, with Sandy finding himself in a place that I can't quite explain. He walks for a short moment gathering his bearings, before typing in the chat,
What?
and being met with an unauthorized access message. Sandy really wasn't supposed to be here, but still confused about where the door had taken him, he wanders around, before falling on a door with a sign above reading Experiment 67801-236. And so with the door wide open, Sandy invites himself in, noticing some sort of portal with animated blocks moving in an unsettling manner. But this doesn't scare Sandy, and so he jumps. Now, this is where things truly get trippy, so watch close. Sandy finds himself back in the very world he was playing in. Wait, what? And the players down below look awfully familiar.
Well, what do we do now? What?
And suddenly, Sandy realizes he's watching himself, having the same discussion in the same place, doing the exact same thing.
How is there another one of me?
This was an enclosure, an experimental area, and Sandy was standing in the observation room. With no matter how hard he tries, his messages stay restricted. After a short while of Cargo watching himself, and still in the midst of his confusion, he turns around and hits the button. With everything I'd seen up until this point, it seemed like an experiment that had gone wrong. The world had started, Cargo stayed on the simulation, the dark figure was there to supervise, and Sandy had gained sentience, with whoever was experimenting removing Cargo so maybe he too wouldn't gain the same awareness as Sandy. But I was ready to be proven wrong, because after all, I had no idea where these videos were about to take me. And so back in the experimental hallway, Sandy continues exploring, eventually finding another door that piques his curiosity enough that he jumps back through the portal, finding himself in yet another version of his world. Only this time, his copy and Cargo are discussing building a castle.
Hey, I have an idea. Should we build a castle?
Sandy is caught completely off guard. This isn't the same loop anymore, but yet the same world. And the castle they're planning to build, he remembers building.
I remember building a castle.
This was another piece of Sandy's memory being experimented on. And as he watches a copy of himself and his long-lost friend venturing out, the same dark figure that's been hiding in the last two videos can be seen in full clarity. And this time, the username is visible, Voyeur. Could that potentially be the supervisor of these experiments? I'd have to keep watching to find out. As Sandy arrives back at the experiment hall, he questions things out loud.
What are all of these worlds?
Continuing to walk down the experimental hallways and quickly finding another door. At this point, the video started to feel repetitive, but with each portal Sandy had hopped through, clues to what was really happening here was unfolding, and something was about to change. Sandy lands in a world unlike any of the others, with the skies entirely corrupted, showing up in patches of odd-looking shapes and colours, almost as if this world too was collapsing in real time. And so he begins to look around more, noticing two players he's never seen before, and then, somehow,
Huh? Who in the heck is that guy?
they notice him too. Despite Sandy being muted, he still attempts to chat,
He's just flying above our house.
What?
but as these new test subjects get no reply, they move on,
Whatever, let's just get out of here.
leaving Sandy watching silently until a weird glitch sound can be heard, and Sandy freaks out, quickly finding himself at again another door. But this one is different. Along with its line of numbers, it's also labelled.
Unstable?
Could this be his original world? Sandy pushes right through. The very second Sandy arrives, it's clear something's wrong. The world was much smaller, paired with an eerie yet loud silence. And Sandy, quickly realizing he'd made a mistake, he turns around to the return button. But it no longer works. Sandy starts to panic. And then, the video suddenly ends with another image, this time showing the pathway to Sandy's house, but with no house. And by putting the other two previous images alongside it, I really hoped it would give off a clue, and yet none of it made any sense at all, leading me to the voice at the end of the video. Which, by going back and slowing it down, we can see that it's someone by the name of Exec04. Was this another experiment supervisor, or maybe perhaps even a worker? I had no idea, but this next video, titled Meeting, definitely did.
He somehow found his way out of his world. I have to talk to him.
The video starts with Sandy back in his world, and knowing what he knows now, he's determined to get back to the experimental hall. He runs the same path to where the hidden door once was, only this time, it's no longer there.
Where is it?
And yet he keeps running, until the screen goes completely dark, only for the video to cut in again to walking in the alternative world. And this time, he's not alone.
Did you get any good book?
Nope, only efficiency 3.
Sandy keeps walking until he reaches the house he supposedly built with Cargo.
Hello?
However, there's two entirely different players living inside, and for the first time in a while,
Who are you?
Sandy is able to communicate, almost as if he'd managed to break some sort of barrier or something had granted him access.
Don't you remember me? I was here not too long ago.
No.
The conversation is led by confusion. Despite Sandy knowing he's met this friendship duo before, they don't seem to remember him at all.
Do you already know us somehow?
Nevertheless, they're welcoming, allowing him to grab any extra resources he needs for his exploration, because to them, this isn't a simulation, this isn't a loop, but simply playing Minecraft on a server. So in no time, Sandy's left alone in the storage room, where he starts searching through chests one by one, eventually coming across a plant chest, and the very second he goes to open it, the screen goes entirely black. It's as if something has just been triggered. Completely freaked out, Sandy runs back up the stairs. An unsettling feeling sets in as the world around him has gone silent. And then, out of nowhere,
Sandy.
Who's this?
Sandy, you have to stop. That doesn't matter. I got the signals from you. You are pushing the limits.
How did I even get here?
Listen, stop talking for a second.
Where's my friend? Cargo.
I think it's better off if I just mute you. You are not listening to me.
Sandy suddenly loses his ability to chat, and somehow it feels like any chance of an answer or even progress is stopped, with Exec03 telling Sandy he's crazy for acting out.
Why are you out of everyone acting like this? Your friend is not coming back, Sandy. He never even played with you. Now, if you excuse me.
And then Exec03 warps to Limbo, or what I've been calling the Experiment Hall. And this is where the video does something I never would have guessed. It goes dark and cuts back in the perspective of Exec03, showing what full access in Limbo truly looks like, with a completely different hotbar and what was also previously spotted on the voyeur's head. Regardless, Exec03 walks through the hallways, finding the unstable experiment and jumping right through.
Are you sure this is safe?
When landing in the unstable world, it's unclear who Exec03 is talking to at first, but after quickly teleporting down, Exec07 reveals himself.
I mean, just in case, you should lock the world. I just don't want this to reach Sandy.
Exec07 is cautious, suggesting and asking Exec03 to lock down the world.
Spectator seems to be working fine. How do I lock it again?
Just do Xblock ID 129651251919.
And if they wanted back into this world, they could do so by using their own commands or a terminal.
To come back here, you can go through the limbo or run xptp exec03 ID 129651251919.
All right. If I need to check anything about the world, I can just use the terminal, right?
Yeah.
Exec03 goes on with locking the unstable world, whilst Exec07 mentions something crazy about Sandy.
His memories got wiped before we brought him to this world. That's very weird. Like I said, close the world just in case.
And before I knew it, I was staring at the unstable house with two things on my mind. The first being the spectator, which I can only guess is there to watch when the experiments go wrong, or in this case, rogue, which left me wondering about the terminal they mentioned, meaning somewhere out there was probably a major control point, possibly where the spectator feeds were streamed to and stored, but why they were running experiments in the first place would remain a mystery. The next video was titled Envoyer, French for sender, with a description containing what looked like some sort of code. But more on that later, because where this video started, I can only describe as the very bottom of the world, ground zero, with an exec walking to what looks like some sort of odd looking room, and as he approaches, he finds himself in front of chests, each one labelled with a number, storing what seems to be archives. He opens a specific chest and retrieves the numbered pages, only to walk further up prismarine looking stairs, revealing a deep dark hallway with plenty of rooms. And as he carries on walking, a new executive can be seen before our exec turns around to his terminal, beginning a conversation with someone completely unknown.
He's been lurking again. He was spotted in 129651251919. He found out about the real house. He knows too much now.
Exec09 goes on to explain the entire situation we've seen unfold, pausing from time to time, almost as if the sound effects and music in the background was mimicking some sort of speech pattern.
We did, but he somehow got in. We aren't completely sure how to stop him. You might have to intervene.
Whoever's on the other side doesn't seem too keen to help.
Can't you just look at what's going on? Hello?
It seems whoever's on the other side of this conversation is potentially behind these experiments, and based off Exec's responses, he or she was disappointed. At this point, Sandy's awareness is a real problem to the execs, and the unstable world that was locked down, being where Sandy originally came from, only confirms how bad this was about to get, leading me to the next video. The video starts with Sandy opening his message box and typing the same command Exec03 was told to use if he ever wanted to return back to the unstable world. And as Sandy hits enter, he finds himself at the very bottom of the unstable strip mine. How did Sandy figure this one out? As he reaches the top, the spectator can be seen, meaning so can Sandy. and as he quickly looks up to see the return to limbo button, he keeps walking towards the house, where no bed, no crafting table, and no painting exists. He proceeds down the stairs to what was once his storage room, but this time there's a door, and he walks without hesitation, pushing on and exploring what seems to be some sort of clinical bunker.
What the actual heck?
Going room after room until he lands on what looks like a bedroom with a red chest. He hops onto a block to open it, revealing a label reading stored vessel information, discovering 4 books inside, each one labeled with a month, all written by someone named Matthew David. Could this be another group of experiments? Sandy starts reading, realizing quickly that these books were diary entries. In the first book, Matthew writes how he misses playing Minecraft.
I miss playing multiplayer.
He's finished exams and invited friends to play, with one name in particular that is brought up often being Andrew.
Andrew is about as passionate about Minecraft as I am.
And so as Sandy gets to the end of book 1, he realizes,
What the actual heck? This is way too familiar.
in the second book, nothing is particularly weird. Matthew seems to have gotten sick, but it's not getting in the way of him playing Minecraft. He goes on to explain how he saw a weird creature in-game.
I did see a weird creature in my game today.
The diaries then introduce another friend, named Thomas.
We got our friend Thomas to join the server.
And the 3 of them decide to build a castle, with plans to one day put a secret base beneath it. This sounded awfully familiar to the experimental world Sandy had walked in on and claimed to remember, where a copy of himself was planning to also build a castle. Regardless, I kept watching as Sandy flicked through the pages, as mysteriously the entire friend group starts getting sick.
They also started to become a bit sick.
Although Matthew, Andrew, and Thomas keep playing, with Matthew seeing the odd creature again, this time describing it in his diary as having a white 3 on his head.
He seemed to have a white 03 on his head.
Sounds familiar. Matthew also writes that this flu or disease or whatever this was only infecting teenagers.
Apparently a lot of teenagers across the world are somehow catching this disease.
Matthew believes whatever this mysterious sickness is, it's spreading through the game, that he feels like he's going to die,
I could be dead tomorrow.
and that he's spiraling into pure insanity, with the last page on the last book ending with the diary entry,
I am part of it. I am part of it now. I belong to it now. And it was decided like that from the beginning.
Sandy freaks out, putting the books away quickly, only to turn around and...
Hey, man.
Cargo? How are you here?
I was looking for you. I don't think we should be here.
You're acting weird, dude. What is happening?
The music intensifies as Sandy's realization kicks in.
Can we please go back?
Something's wrong.
No, you are Cargo.
And as Sandy rushes out,
Sandy.
Cargo, or whatever this thing is, continues to antagonize Sandy.
Leave me alone.
But the music only gets louder, overwhelming Sandy as the seconds go by.
Sandy, come back.
And as Sandy heads out of the door, rushing towards the creepy strip mine,
We can talk about this.
No.
Cargo keeps going.
You will regret this moment. You will always be the mistake known for ruining everything.
What in the world did I just watch? The story was all coming together, the memories, the disease, these 3 characters, the familiarity. Could Sandy maybe be Matthew? I quickly grabbed video 7, the receptor, and hit play. The video starts from a perspective I'd never seen before, but as they reached the terminal and began typing, it quickly became clear who I was watching.
Proceed.
This was someone called Architect.
Unbelievable.
From his one-way conversation, when putting Execo and 9 side by side, there was a good chance it was who he was talking to.
Honestly, I'm disappointed in all of you. All you had to do was lock the world, but you didn't. Listen, you have 63 co-workers. You're the ones who have to figure this out. You're on your own.
This video had a completely different tone to the others, and despite ending so soon, we learned there are 63 execs that work on this experiment. Why 63? I had no idea, but what made this video truly interesting was the description, with the first line when googled showing results of a muscle weakness, leading to loss of movement similar to how Matthew described in his diaries. But this is where it gets deeper, as I remembered the Envoyer's video description containing numbers, and by lining up the random letters alongside it, and picking out the specific letter depending on the number, it left me with a message: body lacking a soul. Could this mean that Cargo never actually existed? Or perhaps he's a shell of what was once Sandy's friend? Either way, I had no clue, meaning now more than ever, it was time for the next video. The video starts with a new exec talking to Execo 9.
You're going to work on the bugs today?
Yep, Ark said he wanted us all to work on it. That Sandy guy.
After his quick conversation with Exec 22, he opens up the terminal, putting in some form of password, heading over to the player's module before picking out Sandy, along with the other friendly duo who had managed to communicate with him, labeled as Thinking Mind. Exec-09 reports them to the architect and turns off the unstable world completely, double checking by trying to teleport there with his command completely failing.
Well, that works now. So, either the permissions were all messed up or...
Exec-09 is suddenly interrupted by a new exec.
I was just walking by, don't mind. By the way, did you turn all access to the real house world off? I can't enter it.
Yeah, I did. I'm trying to fix Sandy entering worlds he's not supposed to.
Exec 13 wanders off, leaving Exec 09 alone with the terminal, where he selects global cameras and for the first time ever, he watches through the perspective of the spectator. Watching a serene mist, another test subject observes the spectator closely, standing quietly, staring deep into the camera. He watches for a short moment before backing out.
That surely was something.
At this point, I'd lost count of how many different execs I'd seen, but yet again, another exec pops up, and this time, it's a confused Exec 05.
Kinda lost right now. What are we supposed to do?
Arch didn't tell you? We are investigating the stuff going on with Sandy.
Wait, Sandy?
Yeah, Sandy.
It's suspicious how nervous Exec 05 seems to be for what felt like a simple interaction.
What a weirdo.
Regardless, 09 returns to his terminal, hovering over buttons almost as if he was about to put something online. But he backs out again, only to see a nervous Exec 05 appear again.
I gotta go.
What?
Exec 09, confused by 05, follows behind, watching as he runs off into the distance, teleporting to the unstable world. And when getting back to his terminal, it's here Exec 09 realizes that the unstable world was no longer offline.
What?
05 had to have turned it back on, and with the realization, 09 teleports to the unstable world, running up the strip mine stairs and heading down deep into the underground bunker. The unstable world is clearly more unstable than when Sandy was in it, corrupting in real time with what was once an all-white clinical house now filled with patches of red, with some rooms turning entirely white and others left completely in darkness. But as he makes his way around this weird bunker, Exec 09 eventually finds 05.
What is wrong with you, dude?
Sitting in the same room Sandy had originally found the diaries, this time quickly burning them before rushing out of the room. Exec 09 chases 05 up the stairs right through the weird corrupted bunker, with 05 warping to an unrecognized map, leaving Exec 09 stumped. Unrecognized map? Where did he go? The video then cuts, following 05 to the unrecognizable world. And then, the video abruptly ends. Now, before I moved on to the next video, I checked out the description, where I found what seemed to be the architect or an exec talking to someone much higher up, covering all the events we'd already seen in full detail, with the only thing catching me off guard being the last paragraph.
Sandy is definitely the first one. I am aware of what he's doing, and I'm letting him have his fun.
As I scrolled further down, I found 4 codes, with the question above being where is cargo. Now, these random strings of text were easy to figure out, as with the equals at the end of each sentence, it was clear it was base 64, and by putting it quickly through a decoder, I got back the creepy message.
He's gone forever, never to be seen again. Nothing more than a memory.
If what they were saying about cargo was true, Sandy was doing all of this for practically nothing. Surely there was a way to find and get cargo back. There was only one way to find out, by moving on to the next video titled Disposal, with a YouTube description simply containing a tree emoji. Are they about to get rid of Sandy? I hit play. The very minute the video began to play, the description was no longer a mystery, with the video opening with Sandy falling into what appears to be lava, and as he accepts his fate, he looks away for a moment, only to land on a tree. The video is eerie, with no hotbar. It's hard to tell where Sandy is or whether he's already been disposed of. Nevertheless, Sandy walks around, exploring what feels to be some form of prison or escape room, finding levers on the wall and a small painting seen in an experimental world before. This place really doesn't make sense to Sandy, and yet he keeps exploring, until he comes across a room taking the shape of his house, with stairs down the middle and a painting of his house above, acting as a reference to this disturbing replica. And so after taking a short moment to investigate and being freaked out by it, Sandy keeps exploring, finding another painting looking exactly like where his house was supposed to be, but missing, similar to the image I had previously seen from an earlier video's ending. With this in mind, I kept watching as Sandy pushed on, as he walked into another room with chests and furnaces oddly placed out of reach, with signs that I could not read and an extremely windy staircase. Sandy looks down and notices a weird downward staircase, leading nowhere, along with redstone lamps stuck up against the wall. But Sandy is far more interested in the stairs leading upwards, and so as he starts to climb, he notices a short hallway in the wall, pausing to look, debating to walk through, before continuing his climb right back up the stairs. It doesn't take long for Sandy to reach the top, quickly realizing he had no other choice but to walk through the odd-shaped hallway. It's here the footage becomes awfully dark, as Sandy explores until he magically comes across a jukebox, where one moment it's playing music and the next, it's completely vanished, magically opening another pathway for Sandy to walk down. Where this pathway took him was right back to the tree he'd started at. What was going on here? I had no idea, but before I knew it, Sandy had run back to the levers, almost as if he'd figured something out, flicking a lever and making his way back to the unusual staircase, this time following through to the weird short hallway, eventually finding himself face to face with the void. For a moment it seems like Sandy takes a moment of peace, staring into the large opening with the sunset in the distance, only for the video to end. Now, I don't quite know how to explain any of this. Sandy hadn't said a word, and this entire video was up for my interpretation. Maybe this was an escape room, maybe this was a prison, maybe this was where Sandy was stuck. I had no idea. But this next video titled Reunion sounded far more optimistic. Maybe Cargo and Sandy would find their way back. I hit play, with the video picking up exactly where it had left me, with Sandy now facing what was once the sun, now being the moon, taking a left turn, going through another small maze before finding an emergency switch. What? Watching this, I was confused, and by listening carefully to the video, I could hear footsteps in the background, before Sandy quickly flicked the lever. Sandy finds himself in a familiar white room, the same unrecognized world that 05 had previously warped to, and as Sandy approaches what seems like a table, Exec 05 renders in.
Hello?
I see you found the emergency switch. I have a lot to tell you, Andrew.
Who are you?
I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. I have no idea how long you've been stuck in this form. Have a seat.
Sandy takes a seat, with Exec telling Sandy,
You might have noticed that you're not actually here, playing Minecraft.
What did he mean by this? Sandy being confused, Exec 05 continues to explain himself.
Andrew, do you remember me? Thomas, your friend.
Exec 05 goes on to explain Thomas from the diary entries is him, Exec 05.
We were going to build a castle, us two and Matthew.
Oh my god.
And so if Exec 05 was Thomas and Cargo was Matthew, it only meant that Sandy was Andrew. Meaning on top of this, the diaries that we had read were written by Cargo. And so Sandy, completely in shock, interrupts Exec 05 to ask a question.
If you're really Thomas, why are you an exec?
Despite the straightforward question, Exec 05 insists on telling him the full story.
Hold on, I have to explain the full story. It won't make sense otherwise.
You see, a few years ago, a sickness appeared. Something that no one had ever seen before.
And to cut things short, you got the sickness. Matthew did too.
When the two friends became sick, Exec 05, also known as Thomas, was hired by the execs to manage what they call the Concept, another name for the loops that Sandy had been visiting and existing in all this time. He goes on to explain the concept in greater detail, referring to those within these experiments such as Sandy as vessels.
Vessels like you are sent to these worlds. These vessels are the people affected by the sickness. They're forced to play the same few minutes, over and over again.
And then Exec 05 drops something I never thought I'd hear from him.
We aren't just execs working on this though. There are people in control of us. My boss is named Architect. He's one of the people who made your world.
Does this mean that he too is trapped within this experiment? I kept watching, as Exec 05 went into more detail about vessels.
Vessels aren't actually people that you see. Players walking around the map. They're the sort of ghost that controls these lifeless bodies. I know you're eager to know about Matthew. He is one of the vessels. But what you haven't noticed yet is that there are camera. They watch you to make sure that nothing goes wrong. When you first broke the loop, a camera we call Voyeur was installed in your world.
Everything was starting to make sense, as when remembering the very first time the video looped, I'd seen the dark figure between the trees, yet Sandy didn't even seem to notice.
Whenever you perform a loop properly, the cameras are taken from the world. When you do something wrong, they send signals to us.
Everything was adding up. This explained exactly why the execs kept appearing, and then Exec 05 offered Sandy a plan.
If you want Matthew back, you need to go back to your loop. You need to get Voyeur on your world. I will enable Matthew to possess Voyeur. Voyeur will be out of order and replaced with Matthew's vessel. From there on out, it's on you. You know how to get out. Take your time to think about how you'll do this. Once you come up with something, let me know and I'll take you to your world. I'll be at the office. Good luck.
Exec 05 would continue as normal, returning to the terminal headquarters to avoid any suspicion, leaving Sandy with a button allowing him to, well, at any point, teleport back to his world. And so with enough time passed, Sandy, previously known as Andrew, hits the button, with the screen going again, completely dark. With the screen coming back in to Sandy walking back in his world, where things seem to be completely normal. The beds are back, the storage room is back, but still no sign of cargo. However, once Sandy's finished up doing his rounds, he leaves the house spotting the voyeur, where he climbs the hill, approaching him carefully, calling out for cargo.
Matthew, it's me.
Sandy goes on to ask Cargo if he still remembers him.
Andrew, do you remember me?
And after a short moment,
Andrew?
aha! Part of his friend was back, and in the process of showing him around, Sandy explains everything.
We need to get out of here.
And with Cargo gaining some form of understanding, Sandy leads Cargo to Limbo, and the final video ends right here. Leaving me with the question, did Cargo and Sandy manage to escape? I guess I'll never know.